as another unwritten thing when you have a good lens and a good camera. One thing that you don't really talk about is the permission to be creative. If you hand somebody a camera that can only do so much, really what you're telling them is they can only do so much. When you hand them something and you tell them like, okay, this is a nice camera, let's see I want you to push it to its limit, see what it can do. That you're basically telling them, activate anything inside of you that's creative and push it. And I think every time you do that, you just get better results.
Welcome back to Church Production. I'm Marcel, Patillo. Fujifilm recently sent us an amazing mirrorless camera, the X-H2S, which on paper seems to be an extremely capable camera for not only photos, but for video. And we've been working alongside our friends at Discover Life Church to find out, is this a good camera for church production? And if so, what's so great about it? But first, let me introduce you to our friends over at Discover Life Church, Andy McMahon and Zelan Rivera.
I'm Andy McMahon. I'm the executive pastor and interim creative tech director at Discover Life Church. And my role is basically, if it needs to be done, I do it. But one of my passions is doing all things creativity. That goes technology to if there's artwork or anything, I love to see it. I'm terrible at it, but I like to come up with the ideas to help do it. And so that's what I do.
Hello, my name is Zelan Rivera. I'm a professional director and cinematographer. Within my role in the church, I also have co-led the creative tech team. In fact, Pastor Andy, my brother and sister-in-law, and I built the tech team from the bottom up during the pandemic. I've been doing it for the past 3 years, and I love it.
So Fujifilm have been in the game for a very, very long time, but it still surprises me that they were able to fit so many amazing features into such a tiny camera. On the photo side, you can get up to 40 frames a second in their burst mode with autofocus, while still retaining that pretty incredible Fuji photo look. On the video side, you can do 6.2K in 30 frames a second and 4K in 120. And their video look has always been pretty solid, even in their smaller cameras. But I'm anxious to hear what Andy and Zelan thought about it.
My initial thought was excitement. I love opening up new gear and looking at it, so I still was completely surprised. It's the quality of the product when you pick it up and you hold it. I don't know if that makes sense, but you could just feel it. You know that there's something else to it.
Like Pastor Andy, I'm very much a camera rig geek. So Pastor Andy did far more with the photography side because he had been a photographer himself, and then I did everything like on the live stream side / videography / cinematography.
So every camera manufacturer has their differences. The build quality, the materials used, the button placement, the menu ease of use, autofocus. But up until now, the guys at Discover Life Church have been using a completely different camera from completely different manufacturer. So I was curious to hear what they had to say about being Fujifilm first-timers.
Getting it put together was easy. If you have a common knowledge of SLR mirrorless cameras, then everything's the same. You know, every kind of brand has its own thing, like the lens might twist on a different way. However, it was very easy to figure out. You line up the dots, you click the lenses on, everything was straightforward. Just manufacturing wise, those lenses were just cut and butter smooth. Man, if I go to zoom, it felt like, I don't know, man, it just felt nice. It wasn't too easy to turn, it wasn't too hard to turn. It was just like the perfect amount to where you're not pushing the focus over. I don't know. It was a really good feel for me. At the very beginning, it was like, okay, well, how do I adjust the aperture? And I'm talking strictly photography here. How do I adjust the aperture versus the ISO versus the shutter? You know, because you got to get that system down, especially in a church service where you're going from like the lobby to the sanctuary. You want to be able to make those switches really quick.
So it doesn't quite surprise me that Fujifilm has managed to make a very reliable, good-looking, fast photo camera. They've been doing that for years, and they've been doing it well. But what about the video side? Usually there's a lot more variables when it comes to shooting video, especially when it comes to low light. And if you're shooting in higher frame rates, higher than 30 or 60 FPS, some cameras fall apart, and it really depends on the sensor and the camera manufacturer. So now we get to hear from the main video shooter at Discover Life Church, Zelan Rivera.
I was really impressed, genuinely, with the low light performance it had. It's able to keep the grain down within the shadows. So when you're filming towards the stage, usually your stage is bright as, like the heavens, and then it bleeds out going to a darker audience. but it kept a lot of the grain down to a minimum, and I loved it. One thing that I loved, and I've always loved this, was the film simulations. Everyone slowly but surely is leaving that broadcast look and is bleeding more towards like a cinematography look. For Discover Life Church, our worship, we record in 2-for-1, and then when we transition, we do a fade to black, come back in, and now you have the full sensor in use for the sermon, announcements, etc., right? But the worship, we like to have that more cinematic, quote unquote, look. To me, Fuji has a more creative image. The different film simulations and how you can tack them in by percentages, I loved it. From a photography point of view, and then you just need an extra roamer, or you want to take this camera to do pictures and video at a missions trip, and you want to be very low profile, or you're doing it for just a gig, this camera kicks butt, and this camera is awesome.
So we also sent a couple lenses with these cameras, and some people will say your lens is everything. There'll forever be a huge debate among photographers and videographers whether you should spend more money on your camera body or more money on lenses. Some people say that if you get the right lenses, they'll future-proof you and you can have one for years upon years upon years if you spend the right amount of money. But I'm anxious to hear what these guys thought about the lenses that we sent over.
I got to tell you, the image quality was... it exceeded what we normally get with our camera on any given Sunday. That's another unwritten thing. When you have a good lens and a good camera, one thing that you don't really talk about is the permission to be creative. If you hand somebody a camera that can only do so much, really what you're telling them is they can only do so much. When you hand them something and you tell them okay, this is a nice camera. Let's see I want you to push it to its limit, see what it can do. That you're basically telling them, activate anything inside of you that's creative and push it. And I think every time you do that, you just get better results, because volunteers tend to care more when they're being challenged and they feel like they have a little bit of control.
I was using the MKX 18-55 compact cine zoom lens, and I was using it strictly for videography, and which makes sense because it's a cine lens. Truthfully, the way it's built, the way it's numbered, it's made to have a follow focus or a first AC on it. The image is butter. It's able to just do a lot of things and keep the clarity of it. 18 millimeters looks beautiful, and it creates this almost music video like image. Follow focus I had, it just kept everything so clean. I never had an issue with the focus. The body of the lens was very strong, very sturdy. You felt the value the moment you picked it up. Very impressed. I do recommend this lens. In fact, I was telling Pastor Andy I would love for us to have it.
So big thank you to Andy and Zelan for taking the time to review these cameras and giving us your insights on what you thought they would be like in the church. To me, the X-H2S seems like a no-brainer for anyone looking for an all-in-one photo, video, run and gun, and get it done kind of camera. We'll make sure to have links to the camera and the lenses in our description down below on our YouTube channel. And speaking of the YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe if you like videos on audio and video equipment in church production. And make sure to go to churchproduction.com for new articles and insights on church production gear alike. And of course, I'm Marcel, and we'll see you guys in the next one.